Why are you seeing an increase in cases? A couple of reasons. The first reason is really the fact that very few Indians have got booster shots. 3 out of 4 Indians, at last count, the number might have changed marginally, but 3 out of 4 Indians who are eligible for booster shots have not taken them. And you don't take booster shots, obviously there is going to be some reaction that you're seeing, and the reaction you're seeing is this increase in cases. The second thing, a lot of people who are getting COVID now are people who never had it over a period of time. And as the virus becomes, as the pandemic turns into an endemic, this is typically what happens. The few stragglers who have not really got it will get it once in a while. It's not as if they're all going to get it at the same time, but they'll get it once in a while. And that's really what you're seeing. Every generation has a book that it grows up to. It's a book that everyone reads, everyone discusses. I may be disclosing my age by saying this, but for my generation, it was a book called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. And it's about a guide to the galaxy which has "Don't Panic" on the cover. And it's especially relevant at this time because everyone around us is panicking on account of what they see as the COVID pandemic's fourth wave. Is there really a fourth wave? Should we be worried by an increase in cases? What should people do? What should governments do? What should be the ideal response to this? These are all questions that people are asking again. And unfortunately, most analysts, most commentators, many journalists, and even some people in government are continuing to use first wave metrics to understand what's happening. It's good that India's Union Health Minister has taken the right stand in saying that this is not the time to panic and it doesn't make sense to really look at the number of cases and worry, which is actually the right thing to do scientifically. So let me explain why. During the first wave of the pandemic, there was really no vaccine. We didn't know a lot of things about the virus. We didn't even know how it spread. Then came Delta, which was the second wave, and was really debilitating because it was a more powerful strain of the virus. Really caused a lot of deaths. In fact, most deaths around the world were caused by Delta. Then came Omicron, by which time the virus had weakened like viruses typically weaken. Weakened in a very interesting way, but again, a way which is not unique to viruses, which is that, or not unique among viruses, which is that it had become more infectious, but less potent and less dangerous. Didn't even cause too many hospitalizations. And now you have a strain of Omicron which is doing the rounds again in India, and you're seeing an uptick in cases. Why are you seeing an increase in cases? A couple of reasons. The first reason is really the fact that very few Indians have got booster shots. 3 out of 4 Indians, at last count, the number might have changed marginally, but 3 out of 4 Indians who are eligible for booster shots have not taken them. And you don't take booster shots, obviously there is going to be some reaction that you're seeing, and the reaction you're seeing is this increase in cases. The second thing, a lot of people who are getting COVID now are people who never had it over a period of time. And as the virus becomes, as the pandemic turns into an endemic, this is typically what happens. The few stragglers who have not really got it will get it once in a while. It's not as if they're all going to get it at the same time, but they'll get it once in a while. And that's really what you're seeing. So what should people do? First thing that everyone should do is to stop looking at the numbers. I don't think reported number of cases is a proper metric to look at all. The only metric to look at this point in time is the number of hospitalizations. The Hindustan Times newsroom tracks the number of hospitalizations. States have not started giving this out yet. At some point in time, I'm sure they will. Many of the cities do, and the number is not alarming at all. In fact, in most large cities, in excess of 95% of the COVID bed capacity that they created is remaining vacant. And so there are not too many hospitalizations on account of it. There are even fewer deaths on account of it, and the few deaths that are happening because these people have other issues which sort of make the whole thing a little more complicated for them. Right? They have other conditions, in many cases prior conditions, not conditions that are brought on by COVID. The ideal response to this should be, one, for people who have not got a booster shot to go out and get a booster shot. Two, for people to wear masks when they go into closed, crowded places. If you're taking a walk in the park, it doesn't make any sense at all to wear a mask. But if you're going to be in a conference room with 15 other people, and it's an air-conditioned conference room, no windows, like most offices don't have windows. Or at least don't have windows that open. They have windows that let the light in. It makes sense to then put a mask on simply because it's safer. Even if no one in the room has COVID, it will prevent you from the strain of the flu that's doing the rounds. It will prevent you from other respiratory diseases. This is pollen season, so it will prevent you from all sorts of allergies. So if you're going to be in a closed room, please wear a mask. And other than that, I don't think people need to do anything else at all. Does everyone who has symptoms, does it make sense for them to get tested? Yes, it does, for the simple reason that you need to know what you've got. There are some people who say that, oh, you can always assume that you've got COVID and isolate. I don't think that makes sense, because there are other illnesses that you could have. A lot of respiratory illnesses are doing the rounds these days. So if you do have the symptoms of COVID, it makes sense to get tested. But there is really no reason to panic. Don't read newspaper headlines that keep stressing about or keep emphasizing the number of cases. Don't look at the positivity rate. None of these metrics make any sense now. I'm going to repeat this. These numbers and these metrics had a lot of sense during the first wave, and the second wave don't mean anything at all now. The only thing that matters now is the number of, the rate of hospitalization, and that is still so infinitesimally small that I don't think we have reason to worry. To be sure, at some point in time, India may want to start looking at the scientific evidence in favor of a fourth shot. Because the one thing we do know is that the immunity that people get from a vaccine wanes over a period of time. So at some point in time, it probably makes sense to start looking at a fourth shot, and also addressing the big question that scientists around the world have been saying we would need to address. Right? From the beginning of COVID, they've all been saying this, which is really just like a lot of us take annual shots for flu. Will we need to take annual shots for COVID? So we need to start thinking in terms of that, which is, which typically you think of when a disease becomes an endemic from a pandemic, right? So I'm going to end with the same two words, which I keep telling people all the time: don't panic.